Hey everyone, welcome to this video. I want to walk through my 104 HP modular live techno case. So the idea here is to have one case that can sustain about 1 hour of live modular techno. The idea is that, everything is going to be live and improvised. There's no preset melodies or anything like that. On a high level, this is just 4 voices. So we have the DFAM, the BIA, radio music, and some noise. Then we have 3 drums. We have a kick, hats, and a clap. And we have 1 effect and 1 end-of-chain filter. And that's all there is. Let's walk through. Basically, I would start here on the top left. This is an LFO that I use as a clock, actually. So the top channel is here, this fast square wave LFO. And that is a clock that basically goes into the steppy, which is the main trigger sequencer in this case. And so let's start with the kick drum on the first channel. So for the kick drum, we have the Kickain going through the guillotine to add some distortion, but then getting right away filtered down by this stepper filter, because I found it's really nice to have this range of kind of gnarliness that you can tone down depending on where you are in the set. And you saw this is just on channel A here, and usually I keep it on 8 steps. Sometimes I do 16 with like a little double at the end, or even 32. That's the kick. And then the hats, they are done in a funky way. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know how I'm doing them. So the way the hats work is through the steppy, I'm only controlling the accent. So by default, we get here this pattern. Let me turn off the delay. But then there's a knob here where I control whether the main gate is this pattern or whether it's the clock. So if I put this up, we get a trigger on every clock and then an accent on these guys. And this goes through a filter again to shape it a bit. And then there's this lower switch. So the top switch selects, as I said, whether it's clocked or just the accent. And the lower switch selects whether it's the open or the closed gates. Anyway, that's the hats. And then the claps, they are very simple because I wasn't able to fit another filter. It's just a 909 clap to make some accents. All right, that's the drums. Let's move on to the sequencing and the synthesizers. So here I'm doing a bit of a trick. Let's start with the DFAM. So the main idea here is that I use the Euclidean circles to do some polyrhythm, both on the DFAM and on the BIA. So here, this 3rd channel of the Euclidean controls when we advance the DFAM. So now it's on a very slow rhythm, every 4th, 16th note. And then we can add a bit of delay. And so I tend to use the top line kind of as low, rumbly square waves, and the bottom line as more high-pitched melodies, which go really well into a delay. And so then we can make this faster by adding a trigger here, or 2. The nice thing if you use the Euclidean circles for this is you easily get this polyrhythm. So here we advance 3 out of 4, 16th, and it makes this polyrhythm against the kick. One trick that I do is I take here the pitch sequence, which is the top row, and I put it into this attenuator, which can, if you crank it up, enable some noise. So let's hear that. So one thing you might hear if you have keen ears, is that the DFAM output goes into the Kickain to get ducked, to make some room for the kick. You can really hear it here if I turn it off. Yeah. Now, another thing I do with the DFAM, I mean, you know, this guy you can do a lot, like crank up the resonance. The other thing is you can just stop it and manually trigger. Yeah, and you can play with the sequence and all these things. But yeah, that's about it. So you see I put it here on VCO2 gets pitch, VCO1 does not, it's just constant. Yeah, the other thing is you can basically turn up the FM knob to make it more percussive. So yeah, this boy is crazy, you can do everything with it, I think. Wow. Yeah. Then the next thing is up here. This is the BIA and its sequencer. Here again, I'm doing a bit of polyrhythmic stuff. So the top line of the Euclidean clocks the sequencer here from Behringer, which is gated by this mute switch. So now if I turn this on, you will see we advance the sequence on every clock. Again, if I turn this down, this sequence becomes much slower. And then the middle one, as you would expect, just triggers the BIA. Again, the idea here is to do polyrhythmic things. And what I like about the sequencer is you can turn down how many steps you have. So with 3, you can make these very nice arcs. And then you can play with the scales to make changes. This all goes into the mum to get filtered. What else to say about the BIA? Yeah, I mean, I like it mostly. Sometimes I get a bit tired of the sound if we turn off the sequencer. But it's nice. this goes into the mum, and then the mum has two inputs actually. And so what I'm doing is on the second input, I'm feeding noise. And the second input has a VCA, which is gated by this last channel here. So we can turn it up. And this is a knob recorder, so we can do things like record this movement. And shape the sound with the resonance. Pretty dope, I think. Yeah. That's the mum, and then we also have the radio music here. Again, I'm really like strapped for input, so the way I do this is this VCA input of the mum. It's either the noise or the radio, and I can toggle with the switch here.
So it's kind of running into Iraq, coming back in, attacking the Kurds. So the Kurds are rioting and attacking inside Turkey. Turkish newspapers say what I'm saying.
And so what's really cool with the voices is when you put a reset. So this guy has a reset input, which I have on the 4th track here. So if I unmute this track,
human being, it helps the 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 human being. All the attempts weaknesses. But now,
and if you make this really short, you get this like funky noise things. And then you can do a knob recording here. And it really changes stuff. Yeah, I really like this. Now I think the final thing that I've done now a few times while showing this is there's the disting here at the very end with a DJ style filter. So it's simple, you just turn this up and you go into high cut. Very nice for drops. Gonna add some the other thing, so kind of what can you do when you play this case, right? You've seen me do a few things. So what I really like to do is play around with the elements that are there, like add and remove elements. So the steppy is really nice for this because you have your 4 mutes here, so you can do things like, let me add a bit of, you can disable the kick, bring in heads. And then bring in the kick together with a clap. You can go to the clap and do some fills. Yeah. You can obviously play around with filters. That's why I have a filter on everything. You can bring this guy in. Anyway, that was what I wanted to show you. Let me know what you think and post in the comments below. Thank you.